This is Roger Simon for Pajamas Media, and I'm here with Dr. Eric Lee. Many of you will remember that several weeks ago we ran a videotape of Daphna Ziman in which she said some mean things about Dr. Lee. Well, a great thing has happened. Dr. Lee and Reverend Charles Steele, Jewish leaders, have gathered together here in Daphna Ziman's home to hash things out. Would you say great things happened?
I think miraculous things happened.
Great and miraculous things happen. I watched them. You're going to watch them. Let's have a look.
Friends, there is no segment of American society that provided as much and as consistent support to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference as did the Jewish community. But as I mentioned at lunch, that I believe one of Dr. King's great legacies is the fact that he understood that a people who fight for their own rights are only as honorable as when they fight for the rights of all people. And it is in the spirit that Dr. King championed the rights, the causes, and the concerns of the Jewish community as well. I believe it's very significant that we gather today which is Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. Martin Luther King Jr., in his speeches, calling for greater empathy between blacks and Jews, would often reference the Holocaust. And in this call for greater empathy between blacks and Jews, Martin Luther King Jr. recognized the inherent power of making one people's struggle the struggle of the other. And historically, this has been the foundation of the Black-Jewish alliance in this country. An alliance, a partnership that has brought about many of the greatest social and political changes in the history of our nation. Daphna and Reverend Lee have embraced this foundation and this historical alliance in terms of their determination, their commitment to join together in the ongoing struggle, particularly on this day of Yom HaShoah, on this day of Holocaust remembrance, the ongoing struggle to eliminate, to eradicate all forms and words of racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, if not to eliminate words of bigotry and discrimination and hatred from our midst. And I'd like to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Charles Steele.
Thank you, Rabbi Snyder. I'm too overwhelmed in terms of the spirit of cooperation and love at this particular time. I just left Atlanta, Georgia earlier this morning. I'll be leaving in the next 2 hours going back to Atlanta with great news, because I'm serving in the capacity of our fallen leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And in the spirit of Dr. King, I was telling Rabbi Snyder and my good friend Reverend Lee, who's working on behalf of the spirit of Dr. King and SCLC here in Los Angeles, and my newly found friend, Ms. Ziman, we are making history today. And to see the two of them, along with all of us at this table of brotherhood and sisterhood, of the peaceful mindset that we're going to convey around the world, because I have a heart for bringing people together, and particularly the Jewish community with African Americans. Being in the position of Dr. King, I cherish that, due to the fact that Dr. King made the statement 5 hours prior to his assassination in Memphis to Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who's worked with me in the state of Israel and throughout the world in bringing about conflict reconciliation programs. And that's the same is these two individuals' mindsets are orientated to and what they are really concerned about in their focus point and the impetus that they exemplify on a daily basis. It's just a matter of coming together, sitting down and talking. But in closing, again, I would like to say that there are many people throughout the world who will applaud what is taking place here today. And I'm very emotional at this particular time because in talking to Reverend Lee, when I called upon him and Rabbi Snyder called Ms. Ziman and they all talked, but my responsibility was to get Reverend Lee's attention and his was Ms. Ziman. And when Rabbi Snyder and I got back on the phone, we say, now we can go because everybody's on the same page. And it's all about helping society, helping the world. And I just want to applaud the two of you for actually making me feel like my work is not in vain. That I've been to Israel 5 times, and I was sermoned there by Prime Minister Ariel Sharon prior to his becoming disabled. And in working with the chief of staff there, with Minister Ariel Sharon and his cabinet members, they said we must come together. And because of the history of SCLC and African Americans, that's when I began to realize the dream. Because when I went to Jerusalem, and I felt the emotion, I felt the commitment, and I committed to God that I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to heal the wounds of whatever opportunities we may have to bring the Jewish community and African Americans together. And I want to thank the two of you.
Thank you. This experience has taken me from shedding tears to feeling an incredible sense of hope and being so honored to be a witness to a divine intervention. I believe that the incident that had occurred is actually divine intervention because it has enabled Reverend Lee and myself to rise above our own self-pain, differences, mistakes, whatever, to a place of thinking about what is important in terms of people coming together. And, you know, for me, the most important thing is that to us to recognize that we are handing our children for the first time in the history of the world in a much worse state than we received it. And that it is a huge responsibility for the biggest population on our planet and in this country. And those are children, and they can't vote, and they don't have a voice here. And therefore, I realized that it was important for me to step up and to be able to accept that responsibility of this divine intervention, to ask with you, Reverend Lee, every spiritual leader, every religious leader in the entire country, not just ask, but demand that no racism will be spouted in any place of worship or publicly by anyone anymore, because the damage is not just to us, but the damage is forever targeting our children and the future of our future and the future of our country and the future of the world. And I appreciate with great sincerity, Reverend Lee, your courage and your determination to come here and to work with me now to rise above and to join me in this demand so that the country will take it seriously and follow in our footsteps. Please.
I I whispered over to Ms. Ziman as people were talking that I felt like we were the prom king and queen here.
I didn't like my prom, so.
And so, and I believe that Ms. Ziman is right, that this is divine intervention. And we are simply servants who have to yield to what God wants in terms of healing and bringing unity to all of our people. We spoke earlier, and I agree with Ms. Ziman that there must be a demand for the elimination of racism and hatred and anti-Semitism all over the world. That not only should it not be spoken, but we need to eliminate it out of the hearts of all people. And I think that this request is long overdue. That our country has to set the example for how we live peacefully and in unity with all people, because we share this planet, we share the resources, and we share a future, and it is our responsibility to make sure that the future of our children is safe and hopeful. I know Daphna's commitment to children, and I am 100% supportive of her work, and I'm just honored to be able to work with her towards a unified movement of peace and love for all people. And so I'm so glad to be here. That's our picture, right?
That's our picture. It's a picture that was drawn by Rabbi, I almost called you Reverend, by Rabbi Pressman. If you look at this picture, you see an African American crying, and if you look at this picture from this side, you see a white man crying. But together, it's all of us crying. We must wipe the tears in a sincere, committed way, because if we don't do it now, we must take responsibility for what the future begrudges our children.
That's right.
I'd like to speak for a moment, if I could. I have a great sense of gratification seeing this group come together today in particular. Stand With Us educates, and our mission of education is that we can build bridges through communication. We can open doors, and we can bring hope where there was none. On this day of Yom HaShoah in particular, when we remember what happened, what began with words and rhetoric, we know the power of words. And what we see here today exemplifies what leadership can do. And we have leaders here, people who devote their lives to public good. And each and every person at this table has done so. And if we can come together on a day like this in such a hopeful way, I think it's a great sign for humanity. I think that we've turned, in Daphna's words, we've turned lemons into lemonade today. And remembering Yom HaShoah, it's a day of remembrance. What does remembrance really mean?